Good morning. I am here and I consider it very important for me to make this video since it's been such a frustrating day. I had some consequences of playing in a pool tournament yesterday. I came home and decided that I had to try to solve the problems we've been having keeping our pool table stocked with balls so that we residents can play on our table. It's at the moment is sitting in the big ballroom, but if they put it in the room it used to be in, it wouldn't do any good because unless they locked it, which they never have as long as I've lived here, because people started going in there, getting drunk, ripping up the felt, stealing balls, jamming sticks into the pockets, and just in general raising all kinds of hell with our equipment. So, at the present time, I had given to me a set of balls, because they're quite expensive and I couldn't really afford them. But my sister bought them for me and sent them to me. And after I'd played quite a lot just by myself and carried my balls around with me, I decided that when the set of balls that were there came up missing, about 3 or 4 balls, I decided that I would gift the Westward Ho with mine. So I put them up, and for quite a long while things went well. And then all of a sudden someone claimed that a homeless person had gotten into the building and they were fooling around with the balls. But anyway, they all came up missing. And of course, I imagine that when you ask why homeless people would destroy property, well, I would say that they're resentful because we have a home, we even have a pool table with balls on it, and they don't have any home. They're living in the street. So that is probably a reason why they might get so angry that they would take away some of the equipment. So, after my balls got stolen, I had helped pay for another set of balls. And this time we decided that we wouldn't put the balls on the table. They might just get stolen again. We would check them out. Well, what's happened there is they haven't been firm about the people bringing the balls back in a timely manner, and they've ended up keeping them all night, but being responsible for them. And so anytime other people go to check out the balls, they are not there. And they're not on the table either. They're home in somebody's apartment. So that hasn't been working out. So today I got out the pool balls that I had taken from the table when I put my own out, and discovered when I went to put them out that 2 balls were still missing. So, or 4 balls. And so I went into the video room because I knew there were 4 or 5 loose balls in there. Well, I went in, I could only find 2. I don't know what happened to the other 2. And the person who might know was not there and was ill, so we couldn't find out. So then I decided that I needed to talk to some other people about our problems with the pool table and the balls getting stolen. And what is more, the frame that we used to center the balls was also missing. So I couldn't believe that the person who took the balls out had possibly taken the frame. So anyway, I went to the office. I asked them who I should talk to. They said go talk to Victor, who's president of the tenants organization. So I went over there and talked to Victor, who's on dialysis and has been for many years. And we talked and talked and talked. We discussed the whole problem from every angle. And Victor said, well, I'm on dialysis 3 days a week. I'm getting overwhelmed. I mean, people are coming bringing me problems. And I said, well, that's what I thought, Victor. That's why I didn't think that you were strong enough to handle all the problems. And at that time, I proposed that I have a turn, but my health took a turn for the worst, and I decided that I couldn't be president either. And so it's obvious that Victor on dialysis is limited to what he can do. And so we discussed that all, and he said that he thought that we should charge a deposit so for the people to take the balls. But once they paid $5, they might think they own the balls and they'd never bring them back, you know. So I don't know whether that would work or not. And I told him that I didn't want to discuss this with the person who's now in charge, more or less, of the video room, who's done a wonderful job of keeping it clean. It's spotless. It's never been cleaner. But she has not been well, and she's very irritable. So I vowed that I would stop getting in fights with people, even if they tried to get, even if they lost their temper at me, I would not respond in the same vein. And then while I was wandering around, I noticed someone that I generally talk to, and so I started over there, and he jumped up and ran away from me, and said, I am not talking to something. Well, I don't know what's happening with him, but when somebody does that to me, or something like that to me, I say, okay, I won't be talking to him for quite some time, because something has happened. I do know this, he has publicly declared that he's quit drinking. And that would help a lot in the long run, but he's apparently very agitated, and he has a diagnosis of chronically mentally ill, just as I do. But I don't happen to think that that's an excuse to attack people. You scream and holler. I mean, you have to pay for such behaviors. Now, Edna has been sitting outside again for several days, and so she came into the Westwood Hole and went to the window. I am pretty sure she was going to talk to them about getting back in here, but she looked very bad, and she had wet herself, and I don't know, I guess she gave up, because the reason why she was evicted to the street was because she did not cooperate at all. Well, you can only get by on a diagnosis of the mentally ill as long as you don't cause too much trouble, you don't act too mental for too long. And she had certainly gone way beyond the limit. In fact, they had to, she hid in the building, and it took them several days to catch her, so they could evict her. So I think they are not going to let her back in, because she's still, in their perception probably, and mine, she's still mentally ill enough that she would not be able to follow the rules and regulation. And the idea is that The staff is not equipped to handle someone acting like that. And the consequences of getting too mental in a place like the subsidized housing, you may get evicted. This doesn't seem fair to take a very mentally ill person and throw them right out into the street. But that's what happens because nowadays they're not providing nice places for the extremely violent or acting out people to live. And as a result, a lot of them are in the street. And you can tell that they're mental because they'll be talking to themselves. They might look like they just came out of the swamp. They'll be filthy. Their hair will look as though they hadn't washed it for 2 years. Now, landlords just shiver and shake at the very thought of housing someone who looks like that. They're naturally very worried about their... So consequences of your acts, even though you might think that you'll be excused if you're mentally ill, it probably won't happen. You probably won't be excused. You'll have to pay a price. And yesterday I talked to a farmer member, and she asked me if a farmer person who said they kept telling her that she wasn't keeping her apartment, bugging her about her apartment. She had 2 cats, so I imagine the cats had something to do with this. And she said that she cleaned up her apartment constantly, and they still bugged her and left her alone. And so she threatened to move, but they didn't stop bugging her, and she finally did move. Well, I found out more about her life story. Now, this woman was institutionalized by her mother because she had epilepsy, she said. And she couldn't handle her. She was into drugs. So Tia was 2 years old, and she said, and she more or less implied she was just like a little animal because people in the institution were trying to raise her. And she said, so when school started, that she was supposed to go and learn, and so there were as another very unruly child like her that were in there. So they decided that they couldn't learn to read or write. They were just too wild, and so Tess said they sent her to PE. So at one time she was taking like 8 sports. All day long she would do PE, physical therapy, physical games, and she never learned to read or write. And so she felt very handicapped. And I said, I had urged her to tell her story. Well, she told me that she could not write on a computer, as she hadn't been educated. She was more like a wild child. And so this tells you that institutionalizing a child like this cannot have very good results. There could be consequences to institutionalizing children. And I've known quite a few people used to be that institutionalized their child who was perhaps very learning disabled or usually something like that, and they found it almost impossible to take care of them, and so at that time they would institutionalize the children. Quite a number of people that I actually knew institutionalized a child that was handicapped or was very hard to handle at home. And then this kind of got out of fashion, that people didn't do that near like they did at one time. The famous case is Rosemary Kennedy, who her father had a lobotomy done on her. And then after she had the lobotomy, she behaved so badly that she was institutionalized. And I thought, oh my, that's a horror story if there ever was one. But I heard Tay's story yesterday, and I know she had a seizure and lay in the street when it was very hot, and she said people passed her by because they thought she was drunk or something, and her got a terrible burns laying on the hot pavement, and well, as hard of burns as you can get, and so she had to go into the burn unit, and she showed me a great big scar that went from here clear down to here. Wasn't really that bad, but just imagine having a seizure laying in the on the hot pavement, passed out, and people thinking you're drunk. And well, this girl is very attractive looking, and she's lost quite a lot of weight, and she just got a beautiful figure. But I've seen her act like a wild child, so I know she can do it because she was in here a long time. So, my mind was whirling at the thought of, problems we have. Now, I myself felt there were consequences to me getting in fights, raising my voice. I would be getting a bad reputation. I would be getting a reputation for a melting down. So I thought, I've got to get hold of this immediately. I've got to stay in my apartment or not interact if I can't control my temper, if I start raising my voice. I've got to be responsible for holding on to my emotions, or I'm going to suffer the consequences. People are going to think I am mad. That I've lost it. Well, I have lost it when I let myself continue to do something that I can't handle anymore, and I'm having and I tend to think I'm perfect no matter what I do. And if I lose my temper, people force me to lose it. Well, I've had to look at it different. I've had to take responsibility for what I do, even when I'm totally aggravated, and might think I was justified, but emotionalism, yelling and hollering, getting into a great big fight with someone, I just can't really justify that. I feel like I've lost it. So that's what I'm saying today. We all have to bear the consequences of how we act. And if we don't want those consequences to be too bad, we have to control ourselves. So that's my message for today, that even me, who is practically perfect, can have a moment of losing control.